I'm going to pass over now to Tzeporah Berman, and many of you will know her. She is International Program Director at Stand Earth. And then she's been thinking a good deal about what we do with our forest products, amongst other things. So perhaps you could come and comment on your thoughts, Tzeporah.
Thank you. It's great to be here with all of you. Our time is short, so I'll focus really on two messages. I think it's very clear that we need to listen to the science and we need to protect what we have. We all share a lived experience now of what happens when we do listen to the science and when we act quickly. And we know here that COVID is not the only curve that we need to flatten. Building back better means bending and flattening the curve on greenhouse gas emissions. And building back better means prioritizing companies, industries, plans, and infrastructure that protect what we have, protect biodiversity, stored carbon, ecosystem services, and stopping or winding down those that do not. The focus on tree planting in these recommendations is a very Canadian approach. We don't want to rock the boat on existing industries, but I think we need to be clear when we look at the science. Our forest policies mirror policies from the 60s in Europe. Our agricultural policies maybe from the 80s in Europe, and neither of them focus on maintaining ecosystems as the foundation of resiliency. In fact, Europe's now scrambling to undo those effects, to rewild. So last month, a study in Nature on irrecoverable carbon, scientists detailed that vast stores of carbon are being released and can't be restored by 2050. The study calls for the next generation of protected areas network across critical ecosystems with high irrecoverable carbon stocks. Then 2 weeks ago, a groundbreaking report commissioned by the Treasury in the UK assessed the economic value of biodiversity and concluded that current high rates of biodiversity loss pose a major risk to our economies and our way of life. Just as diversity within a portfolio of financial assets reduces risk and uncertainty, diversity within a portfolio of natural assets, biodiversity, directly and indirectly increases nature's resilience to shocks, reducing the risk to services on which we rely. We've heard a lot this morning already about how boreal forests store more carbon per hectare than any other ecosystem on Earth, probably other forest ecosystem except mangroves. Yet right now, every year, logging companies are clear-cutting 400,000 hectares, about 1 million acres of boreal forest. That's about 7 NHL hockey rinks per minute. Research in BC has shown that following a clear cut, there's a minimum of a 13-year window where the logged and replanted area no longer sequesters carbon. So this analysis suggests that clear cutting is preventing forests in BC from removing an additional 26.5 million tons of carbon dioxide per year from the atmosphere. So the point is that maintaining older biodiverse forests draws down carbon levels and helps buffer imperiled ecosystems against the impacts of climate change. But more than that, protecting intact forests also makes nearby communities more resilient to climate impacts such as droughts and fires and wildfire. So last month, Stand.Earth released an investigative report on Canada's growing wood pellet industry, and I urge you to take a look at it. Because what we're seeing is that pellets are heavily subsidized. They're touted by our governments as a climate solution. But growing the wood pellet industry in Canada doubles down on carbon emissions, first by instant releasing of forest stored carbon at the smokestack, and second by driving the further degradation of forests. So listen to the science. In the words of IPCC scientist, Professor Emeritus Bill Muma of Tufts just last month, if we let some of our existing natural forests grow, we could remove an additional 10 to 20% of what we emit every year. But instead, we're paying subsidies to have people cut them down, burn them in place of coal, and counting it as zero carbon. So in sum, we need to focus on protecting high biodiversity areas, carbon-rich primary intact and old-growth forest landscapes. The idea that we're still allowing critical caribou habitat to be logged in this country to make toilet paper, when our own scientists have said we need to protect those forests, needs to stop now. We need to support Indigenous guardian programs, as we've heard, employment centered on land restoration, economic diversification in these forest communities to create more jobs. And it really is time to reimagine the fiber industry in much the same way we're starting to reimagine energy and oil. We can add jobs and economic vitality with a value-added job strategy. We can build furniture, we can make things and stop shipping raw logs and wood pellets while clear-cutting our forests, which are the planet's carbon pools. We can search out alternative fiber supplies, recycled fiber, agricultural waste. We need to update our forest practices to reflect adaptation science, ecosystem-based management that maintains or restores original forest complexity rather than the existing practices which are designed to ensure maximum extraction. Selective logging, for example, in coastal forests, FSC logging across the country, it will employ more people. And then finally, we need to get honest about carbon accounting. We have a broken carbon accounting system when it comes to terrestrial carbon. We're not accounting for emissions from logging old forests or methane emissions from peat and soil disturbance. A recent paper in Waterloo showed that just from oil and gas exploration from seismic lines in Alberta alone, these undocumented emissions would boost Canada's national reporting of methane in the category of land use and forestry by about 8%. Instead of tearing down nature, we need to rebuild our systems and protect the abundance that we have.